Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of our PMLC Global Nexus podcast. I am so happy to announce that we are airing episode 7. And for those of you new to our show, my name is Dr. Susie Joseph, founder and CEO of the Project Management Learning Center and PMLC Consulting Group. And it is my absolute pleasure to serve as your host for today's discussion. Now, if you've been following us for a while, then you're familiar with our podcast show, PMLC Global Nexus, where our mission is to empower project professionals, PMO leaders, and organizations with the knowledge, skills, and strategic insights needed to deliver successful outcomes in an increasingly complex world. Tonight, we are tackling a topic that sits at the heart of organizational performance and project success. And I have some new toys, so I'm going to use my first one tonight. Okay, so it is capacity and demand planning for a high-performing PMO. So whether you're managing a PMO, leading strategic initiatives, overseeing a portfolio, or simply trying to do more with limited resources, this conversation that we're having tonight about capacity and demand planning for a high-performing PMO will provide practical insights that you can immediately apply within your organization. And as always, joining me today is my colleague and co-host, which he will tell anybody I am his most expensive friend, Dr. Jimmy Goddard, President of Global Compass Hub. Welcome, Dr. Jimmy. How are you?
Thank you, Dr. Susie. It's great to be here. Everybody know my most expensive friend ever. Happy to be here.
Oh, wait. I got it. I have to do this. That's right. Applause, everyone.
Exactly. Now, today I'm very excited because, as you stated, organizations, everywhere are facing this increasing demand for transformation, right? I mean, we were talking about digital transformation before, and now we have AI that is pretty much transforming everything, of new tools coming and so forth. We're talking about innovation, we're talking about growth, we're talking about disruption in the political area and the commerce area and the business area. So many are still struggling to balance this ambitious project portfolios with so many limited resources. And if you think about it, the technology is really moving faster than our resources are keeping up. So really looking forward to this discussion on how we're going to help leaders understand how to make better decisions about what to pursue, when to pursue it, and how to ensure sustainable delivery. Sustainable delivery, right? And that's the key word. Sustainable delivery that will yield value.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. And we're honored to be joined by an accomplished PMO leader whose experience spans across strategic planning, portfolio management, resource optimization, and organizational execution. And as we bring him to the stage tonight, please join me in welcoming Mr. Joel Makinde from Lagos, Nigeria. Mr. Joel, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Susie. Thank you very much, Dr. Jimmy. I mean, it's a pleasure, really, to be here today, to be able to share some of the insights from experience, from some of the work that has been done, especially on the topic, which is something that virtually affects every organization, big, small. The issue of capacity planning, the issue of demand planning, resource allocation, and also utilization management. I mean, yes, it's such a wonderful topic to be discussing at this point in time, especially as it relates to the way organizations plan, the way organizations make use of their resources to execute properly their strategic plans. And look, really, I'm very, very excited to be part of this conversation today. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, gentlemen, as we grace our audience tonight on this exciting topic about capacity and demand planning, let's begin tonight's discussion with demand planning in mind. Mr. Joel, organizations often have more project requests than they can realistically execute. And over your experience, what exactly is demand planning within the context of a PMO? How would we explain that to our audience tonight?
I think, as we have said, most organizations have different projects that they are working on, really. And as we all know, that organizations implement projects in order to implement change, right? And so, in that context, demand planning basically is a process of identifying, evaluating, or assessing, as well as prioritizing and managing the flow of project requests. So you have different project requests that can come from either the business, it could come from regulation, it could come from maybe technological changes, but all of these project requests needs to be properly identified, properly assessed, properly prioritized, and managed. And basically, that is what speaks to demand planning, I believe.
And also, the role for demand planning, I would assume, is to ensure that these requests are then evaluated objectively before the resources are committed to actually doing the work. Would you agree with that?
Of course, I totally agree. We can't execute projects without the resources. And so part of demand planning is just not identifying, but being able to plan the right resources to those projects, those requests. Uh, a mature PMO basically understands that every request represents an investment decision, and every investment decision requires resources. So, demand planning basically helps leaders to be able to distinguish between projects that are merely desirable and those that are truly necessary for us, the business to meet its strategic objectives.
Indeed. And Dr.
And
Jimmy, I think that that would be interesting because some organizations seem to say yes to everything. Do you agree? When it comes into their pipeline, they're just, in a hurry to, oh, this is a priority and that's a priority, but failing to realize how to strategically and objectively look at capacity and demand planning. What are some of your thoughts around that?
yes, no, that's a good point because it is my experience that high performing PMO, even the great ones, they fail when they approve more work than constrained roles can absorb because demand is accepted faster than delivery capacity is understood. And I think that's the key word. And the question then becomes, what do you do? Uh, I could I could probably phrase the question, why do organizations consistently take on more projects than they can realistically deliver? That will be the first phase. And the second phase is, what do you do when growth is happening and you do not have a sustainable infrastructure to withstand such growth? Then all of a sudden you have a lot of projects in front of you. And even though you want to prioritize, but many of those projects, really, if you were to step back and look at them, they are really programs. In other words, they are infrastructure, they are security, they are operations, and they are strategic investment that you have to do. So,
Mhm.
what do you do when you're dealing with resource planning, demand management, prioritization, and and um, and also strategic investment because they are visibly all interdependent competencies for the PMO to be successful. So then how do organization or how should organization strategically um, handle all those projects where realistically they cannot really deliver on all of them?
Yeah. So
Joe,
then,
what do you say?
Basically, just as you have said, when there are competing demands, when there are several projects that are coming in, there are several reasons why the projects would be a lot. There will be a line of projects that could cause capacity to have issues. Business units may advocate strongly for their own point of view or their own projects or change initiatives they want to do. Leaders could be more ambitious than they ought to be. Executives may demonstrate responsiveness, But basically, different organizational units are pushing forward their own project requests. And so this could cause like a portfolio overload. I think that's what we'll call it. And too many projects competing for the same resources, for the same timeline, for different issues could lead to quality issues, could lead to budget overruns. And that's why we would want to have proper capacity planning done.
I would totally agree with that. And it could either be either a like portfolio overload or a tug of war between, whose priority is more important than the other and how we should do that. So those are some very powerful distinctions that you just made there. Joel, in addition, what would you say? Should every project request automatically become an approved project?
Of course not. Of course not. Right. Well, it's the prerogative of the business units, it's the prerogative of leaders to push forward their own project requests, but it's also the prerogative of a mature PMO to be able to put a distinction between what's possible based on the resources, what's possible based on budget, what's possible based on timeline, what's possible based on the strategic alignment of the business.
Mhm. And also if they have like the sufficient capacity, what risks may be introduced, in addition to aligning with the strategy and strategic goals and objectives, are they actually doing the right work at the right time to define, what type of people are needed to fulfill those roles. So without those questions, organizations become very overwhelmed with their competing priorities as well. And Dr. Jimmy, I just want to know, should PMOs have the authority to reject projects?
Oh my goodness, that's the question, right? So, what does the research say? Research says that about 20%, only 20% of executives are really confident in the resource and the resources allocated for strategic planning. Think about it. Only 20% of executives are confident. So we have this tug of war, if you will. You have capacity, a high level of view of the organization can deliver, by role, by department, team, and so forth. You also have demand, which is the flow of work that comes in. So there are five disciplines that I believe a high performing PMO should embrace. And to answer the question, should PMO have the ability to reach a project? So first of all, the PMO should have director level or executives in very participating at the PMO to really view what I talk about demand and also capacity. Now, a very high performing PMO should have what I call resource intelligence, meaning inventory of all the skills, roles, availability of the team. You also have flexible planning, meaning to ability to do a top-down role planning early. You also must have what I call the financial visibility, the capex, opex plan versus actual effort. Also capacity demand analytics, because some projects will have too many people, where some other projects do not have enough resources. And you have what I call the rapid reprioritization, meaning what if analysis to compare trade-offs without disrupting production goals. When you take those five things into consideration, the outcomes will be the teams will stay focused on the highest value work instead of spreading thin across too many starts. You take those five disciplines. Any PMO that put those five disciplines up in practice will have the authority to say no. As a matter of fact, Willie, what you're saying, you're not really saying no to projects. You are doing the right thing by prioritizing the right projects so that you can do them the right way the first time to deliver value. Again, the key word for me is value delivery. If a project does not deliver value today, why in the world are we doing it? So, straight answer to the questions. Should PMO have the authority to reject projects? If a PMO does not have an authority to reject projects, that PMO should stop being in existence.
Absolutely. I believe a mature PMO should be able to make that decision. Let me start from where Dr. Jimmy spoke, where he said the PMO should not even exist if they are unable to prioritize, if they are unable to select, if they are unable to say no to some projects in favor of other projects. And the conversation basically lies around, does the project meet our strategic objective for the year as a business? Does it meet our strategic objective for the next 3 or 5 years, depending on what level the PMO is operating at? Is it enterprise level or departmental? So they want to look at it from a strategic point of view. Secondly, they want to also look at capacity. Do we have the capacity to deliver this? Are there actions we need to take in order to have the capacity to deliver? Do we have the skill set presently to deliver those kind of projects that we need to execute? Some of these decisions needs to be taken by a matured PMO. Some PMOs, depending on the maturity level, might not be able to make the decision or might require an executive sponsor, right? But the PMO should have an input, maybe some analysis, some reporting, with which the executive sponsor or the person with the capacity or the authority to make decisions around projects that should be executed or projects that should be put on the pipeline or should be put on the bench. PMOs should be able to have an input into it, basically.
So what I'm hearing is that demand planning isn't just about saying no, but it is about saying yes to the right things with the right inputs and with the right strategy that also aligns to the business's strategic goals and what projects they want to have delivered. Um, so,
Definitely.
okay, so demand planning actually protects the organization's focus, right, Joe? Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. I totally agree. I think let me go back to something that was taught us in economics for me around woman's needs are insatiable. And we talk about the opportunity for gun and all of those things. So that's basically what capacity planning is. You need to be able to focus on what will give the business value. Dr. Jimmy spoke to that also. What will give the business value strategically now or in the near future compared to other projects that may impact might not be as high as the other ones that are being selected. So capacity planning basically speaks to demand planning basically speaks to that selection process, that prioritization process.
So now you already kind of gave us a segue into capacity planning. So let's move from demand into capacity, because capacity in most organizations is the hottest topic, right? People want to know, do we actually have the capacity to do the work that we actually want to do, right? So as we move from demand to capacity, once we know what we want to accomplish, we must then determine what we can realistically deliver based on the resources that we have available, right? So, Joel, can you take a moment to explain to us, from your experience and expertise, what is capacity planning?
Uh, Let me start by saying what capacity planning is not, right?
Okay.
Capacity planning is not headcount. I think the misunderstanding with most organization is, oh, we have all of these projects requests, right? Well, we have enough people that can handle them, but that most of the time is not the truth. That most of the time is not the reality. Why? Because capacity planning is different from headcount. Capacity planning basically speaks to understanding your ability as an organization to be able to execute the work successfully in good time, in good quality, right? And it's quite interesting because capacity doesn't just speak to the people or the number of them, head count as we call them, but it speaks to the skill set. It's possible for you to have 100 persons or 100 team members in the business, but it's only, say, 20 people who can actually do the work or the work related to the project. So in that case, the capacity is at 20, not at 100. right? So it's not the same. It also speaks to availability. It's possible that a team member who is supposed to work on a project, which is planned for, is already working on another project, which means they are not available. So businesses need to view capacity planning from the point of view of people, the skill sets, the technology, availability, the infrastructure, all of these things come to play when we are doing capacity planning. Or what do you think, Dr. Jimmy?
Yes, I completely agree with you. And that's what I mentioned earlier, the capacity versus demand, right? And capacity, if you're going to headcount itself, the headcount is going to be a very poor measurement. The way I would look at it, I would probably say there are four components to take into consideration. First, let's look at benchmark. According to industry research, we have 80% of utilization guardrail. I mean, that's already a practical benchmark that noted in PMO in order for you to be successful, so you can avoid overload and preserve what I call human capacity. And a lot of companies, the human element, they look at the human element as just resources as we spend anywhere else. So there is this effect on people as well. The talking about capacity planning as well, you should have a demand queue, one governed intake that will funnel, one governed intake funnel that will beat what I call disconnected project requests, and also that is sent straight to the team. I like to make this analogy. That's why when you have a restaurant, you do not have customers go straight to the kitchen to order their food. You have a hostess that will take the order and will tell people to wait because we don't have enough seating or we have too much order that we need to catch up. So first, you're looking at utilization guardrail. That's number one. An organization should be using 80% of that. Second, you have a demand queue. So as all projects come in, we can do the prioritization, we can do the planning. And number three, we need to have the core views. Core views, I look at that as capacity by role, by demand, by period, and gap by priority. The minimum should be part of minimum executive boards. And again, that core view really shows you what the organization can handle and when. And last one, I would say would be decision levers. Decision levers for the PMO to be able to delay, to descope, to reprioritize, to outsource or hire. Every gap should map to action. So you have utilization guardrail. You should utilize about 80%. Have a demand queue and intake so that you can see what's going on. Have the core views, meaning capacity by role, by demand, by period, and also gap by priority, and also the decision levers for you to be able to delay, for you to descope, to prioritize, or to outsource. Capacity planning, in my experience, when you apply those four metrics, that's what really help you. And to do it by headcount is very misleading, and you're not going to be successful.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And I think I'll just re-echo some of the things you've mentioned, especially with the restaurant analogy that was given, right?
Mhm.
So from the beginning, we spoke to demand planning, which basically means the orders and all of that. And then capacity planning is how the organization like arranges itself to be able to deliver. And it's quite interesting points around those four things you've mentioned. Dr. Susie.
Yes, I think that people are not interchangeable, and skills also matter along with the experience. So, capacity planning should focus on capability and not just merely numbers, as you guys are simply saying. So, if we were to look at like how far ahead should organizations plan for capacity, Dr. Jimmy, what would be some of your key points on that? And then we'll go directly to you, Mr. Joel, about how far ahead should organizations actually plan for their capacity?
I would say the the time span or the outlook should not necessarily be driven by time, but also should be driven by the investment. Let me provide an example that everybody should know by now. Let's talk about AI. We have so many different tools of AI that's in the environment. without making advertisement for everybody to any specific tool. Everybody knows what are the top players are. The top players, if you're a Microsoft shop, you're probably gonna use Copilot. If you're a Google shop, you're probably going to use Gemini. And if you use a hodgepodge of everything, you're using ChatGPT or you're using Cloud. So you have those four main players, and you have also Perplexity. You have, if you're out there, you're probably gonna use Grok. You're probably gonna use all those components. Now, if you're going to bring those tools into your environment, so the question is, how far along should you plan? Not necessarily how far along should you plan, is what's the next investment? Because if you're a Microsoft shop and all your people knows Copilot, and for some reason you want to do financial analytics, and Cloud actually to be one of the strongest AI tool that will probably help you do that, and you want to invest in Cloud, now you have all your staff to be at Microsoft, but now you're going to bring in a new tool that they have no knowledge about. So how do you do that? How do you bring that in? That's number one. Number two, you have the bringing all those tools into your workplace. Also talk about security. You need to create guardrails that will help to do monitoring, auditing, logging on those tools. So when you bring those tools in, do you have the staff currently in place to perform the security monitoring? So the workforce planning is not necessarily by how long ahead should you do it. It should be associated with what investment that the business plan on doing to make them competitive, to bring value, and that will drive the workforce. And you may have to, as I mentioned earlier, increase the training for your workforce, because if you're going to maintain the tool, or if your investment is a priority, you may have to hire a third party, a consulting firm, to go ahead and bring the tool in while your team is going to training so that they can support it for operations. So I would say, Dr. Susie, it is more the the timeline has to do more based on the investment
Mhm.
versus, oh, let's just go ahead and let's have a 3 year to increase our workforce. And sometimes you have to hire contractors, because as you bring the products in, your operations teams, they have to maintain operations. So you hire additional folks to bring the product in. Once the product is done, implementing through projects, those that task force or those resources can leave so that your operations team can maintain.
And I just want to take a moment to bring this full circle, because I think you brought up a very good point there about capacity. And if we look at it holistically, capacity includes, just so we can recap, the people, the skills, the time, the budget, technology, infrastructure, the availability, as well as organizational readiness. Especially as we, are embarking upon new technologies in the world of AI, that's something that we really should consider. So when we talk about how capacity should help organizations to plan, and we're not necessarily looking on the timeline of it. Mr. Joe, what are some of your ideas and thoughts around how far ahead should organizations plan for their capacity?
I think there's a balance between the time, uh, the prioritization that was initially done in demand planning,
Mm-hmm.
as well as around risk management. Let me give an example. So I worked with a team where we had several projects that were supposed to be executed across the year. Definitely, the prioritization had been done. But another thing that was done was to look at the team members who were available. So I think availability also comes to play a lot here, because like you mentioned, the people, the skills, the infrastructure, the technology, and all of those. So we had to plan based on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, timeline, it depends really on the business. It really depends on how much foresight the business is looking at. It's possible to plan capacity to 5 years, or to 1 year, or to 12 months, 6 months, right? Depending on what the business is trying to achieve. But for each of these, there's it's important that there's proper governance around something Dr. Jimmy mentioned, monitoring and agile reprioritization. Because it's
Mhm.
very possible that you plan presently for the next 6 months or the next 90 days, and then changes happen. You have to be agile enough to be able to make those changes, to be able to reallocate your resources, to be able to reallocate the to reprioritize those projects to ensure that the business is still getting value. So to answer your question of how long or how far ahead should leaders plan, depends on uh, value that they want to achieve, and then how agile basically to changes and risk that the business wants to be. I think that would be my own position.
Okay. And then if we take a look at that from the angle of workforce planning, how would that come into play as we're looking at demand planning, capacity planning? Now we're looking at the workforce planning. How would we bring all of that together, Mr. Joe? What are some of your thoughts around that?
So at a strategic level, right?
Mhm.
Capacity planning, workforce planning are becoming something that the business cannot play with, right? And for the human resources function, for example, they are also getting very much involved and getting much that's interrelating with the PMOs for at the strategic level because it becomes a function at that level. They need to plan properly. You need to have your plan for, say, a particular time period. And based on that, you're looking at where are the gaps in our capacity, in skill, in the people, in technology, and then plan to either acquire them, like Jimmy also mentioned, either to acquire them, either to do some trainings. Basically, I think that's what I would say around workforce planning. So it's more around foresight. It's more
Mhm.
around um, seeing how everything plays together at a higher level. So there's need for good visibility, there's need for good foresight, and then the gaps need to be filled in different time slots. I think that would be my answer to around workforce planning, basically for
Okay.
organizations.
So what I'm hearing is that basically future project success depends on future talent readiness within organizations, and that organizations must identify what those emerging skill requirements are long before the skills are urgently needed so that they can meet the demand and so that they can also plan the capacity accordingly to achieve those goals. So now I want to focus on resource allocation. So we're going to talk about resource allocation now, and what does effective resource allocation look like within a healthy organization? I'm going to go ahead and throw that in there because we know resource allocation is a very hot topic as well, but it folds very nicely into our discussion this evening. So, Mr. Joel, what does effective resource allocation look like? And I'm going to say in a healthy organization, what would that look like to you?
So I'll start from where we are coming from. We've looked at demand planning, which is basically these are the lists or these are all the requests or these are all the possibilities, let's use that word, of changes or initiatives that can be done. And then
Okay.
from there, we move into capacity planning, which basically means what do we have as an organization to be able to fulfill those possibilities. Now, as you have rightly directed us to allocation, how do we allocate resources to those possibilities, right? And so resource allocation basically speaks to the right people or the right technology or the right infrastructure to the right work at the right time.
Mhm.
And as simple as it is to say that, very, very multifaceted, very complex issue, right? And like you said, in LD organizations, it's very important to be able to balance priorities with value delivery. I think that's top of mind. That's something that needs to be kept at the back of the mind for a mature PMO working in a very LD organization. You need to be able to visibly see balanced demand, capacity, and the resources that we have. Uh, why I'm laughing is sometimes it's easier to say, but there's something called, I think it's called management override. Sometimes you have
Mhm.
the best idea of how to execute this, right? How to make sure that the right resources are going to the right projects, but
Mhm.
you get a sponsors, you get, for lack of a better word, favoritism. It happens everywhere. You have certain skill sets or people with certain skill sets that you want on particular project, but you know that if that happens, there'll be some funny things that will happen across the business. So there is a balance, really. It's as a PMO really needs to be able to balance the organization's strategy, the organization's priorities, the organization's value delivery, the timeline, the resources, as well as plan for change and risks, because Murphy's law. things, things that will go wrong will definitely go
Oh, now
wrong.
that's a good one.
Yeah, I think that would be what I would say around resource allocation. I hope I've not delved too deep into that.
No, no, I would just say like effective resource allocation balances organizations, their priorities while maximizing their value delivery. And it requires both, I would think, visibility into demand, capacity, skills, availability, as well as an organization's strategic priorities. So, Dr. Jimmy, how do high performing PMOs allocate resources differently?
Oh my goodness. This is by itself a 1 hour conversation.
It sure is. We could actually
Um,
turn that into episode 7A, couldn't we?
yeah, no, seriously, because we really have to. I have the experience. I don't know if it's the fortunate or unfortunate experience to see this
Uh-huh.
at play on both sides. So before I go to the high performing PMOs, and this is why I think that the key focus should be, because I want to highlight what is what people are doing well. However, let me also highlight what may not be doing well. So if you're listening to this and you ask yourself this question, you find yourself reasoning that way, we have to live with it. In other words, we have 5 projects and we have 3 project managers, and their level of performance is terrible. Meaning, if you cannot trust a project manager to hold a birthday party for your first child, that
Mhm.
person should not be on your high priority projects.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So don't abide with this notion. We have to live with it, right? This is what we have, and this is what we have to do. And I
Mhm.
think this is a recipe for disaster. And if you don't address this competence level at the beginning, you're gonna pay the price at the end. So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, let's talk about the way you do it right. You should I have seen high performing PMO allocate resources by treating them as a governed portfolio constraint,
Mhm.
not a project by project after fact. Meaning, this project comes in, oh, who do we have available? Right? No, it doesn't work that way. You should focus on feasibility first, meaning capacity, skills, timing. All this must align before a work is approved or a work is scheduled. So I'm going to give 5 high level, and I'm not going to get into details. The way allocation should be done the right way, you should allocate resources by priority and strategic fit, not by whoever asks first. Priority and strategic fit. Number
Okay.
two, you should allocate by role and skill, not headcount. By role and skill, not headcount. You may have a PM that is really good at doing administrative work projects, but if you have a technology project or if you have a um, merger acquisition project, they don't have the skill set to do it. That's number two. So we say priority and strategic fit. We say role and skill. Number three, capacity versus demand. You should allocate using capacity versus demand, not fixed annual consumption, first come, first serve, or this one comes and whoever's available. No. Allocate also using scenario planning. What if analysis will help to see the impact of delays, scope changes, or new initiatives. So priority and strategic fit, role and skill, capacity versus demand, scenario planning, and last one, you should always allocate resources to a governance cadence regular governance cadence, monthly portfolio reviews, quarterly reprioritization. Because you start with the PM on the project, if the PM is not cutting it, get them out. Give them a project that they can manage and bring the right PM to lead the right projects. And I believe the key to success is the understanding that PM, project managers, which I do not like that term, let it be known to all,
Mm.
should have the ability to lead a team to deliver results, not managing task schedule, costs, and all that. Those the time that we have those project managers who think they can be in a room to take notes so that they can report, or project managers that they're to beat people over the head.
Mhm.
Those times are gone. Remember, you manage things, you lead people. We
Yeah.
need PM, we need resources that can lead, not manage things. If you can lead, then management follows. But if you manage things, you're gonna tell, oh, I'm managing this thing, it's my way or the highway, that kind of shenanigans. Sorry, it's not gonna cut it.
Yeah. And I would say that like high performing PMOs allocate based on skills and business value rather than
Mhm.
availability alone. So many organizations, they will assign the work simply because someone appears available, but high performing PMOs will assign the work because someone is best suited to actually
Exactly.
deliver that success.
That's a
So,
mic drop moment right there, Dr. Susie.
yeah, I will. So, high performing PMOs, let me give myself an applause. So high performing PMOs will assign the work because someone is best suited to deliver it successfully. So next, when we talk about how should organizations prioritize specialists or cross-functional talent, we're looking at now the depth of what those resources are. So when we look at specialists versus someone who has cross-functional talent, Mr. Joe, should organizations prioritize based according to specialist or cross-functional talent?
Well, a balance of both, actually. It really depends on what is being achieved or what is expected to be achieved on a particular project or the requirement. Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, all projects, the basic goal is to get value, right?
Mhm.
And for when it comes to resources, when it comes to allocation, we also need to take that view from strategic value. So for certain projects where you require expertise, you need deep expertise, you need deep experience, you need some level of nuance, like you need that expertise, you need to make use of specialists, right? Because they have the depth, they have the experiences around that. But one good thing which we had mentioned around is changes, right? Because changes will also always happen. It's very important that as a business you're able to be flexible, you're able to be resilient, because at the end of the day we want strategic or sustainable strategic value, right? And so cross-functional professionals are usually best fitted for
Mm.
projects where
Mhm.
we want to be flexible enough. I think Dr. Jimmy was giving an example where a project manager is probably not delivering as he ought to, right? And you need to probably pull him out. You need to bring somebody who probably is cross-functional, who is available at that time to be able to close out that project. So it's really a balance of both, and that's why it goes back to that conversation that Dr. Jimmy mentioned.
Mhm.
80% utilization is usually better than 100%. 100% will just clog the system. So most organizations or strong organizations usually maintain a healthy balance between allocating specialists and allocating cross-functional professionals, basically.
Okay. And I think that that's especially relevant, being as how we just recently rolled out our VPMO, and the announcement is on LinkedIn. I'm gonna drop that little nugget right there because it's golden. So check us out. Check us out, our services and everything else. It is PCG's Virtual Project Management Office. So I would say that this is especially relevant for the virtual PMOs as well, and staff augmentation models. And it's the ability to see enterprise-wide resource demand and how that is so crucial and very critical to project delivery. So I want to transition us over to resource utilization management. And Dr. Jimmy, as we're beginning to open up this discussion for utilization, I know that many leaders, they celebrate the 100% utilization. Tell us, from your opinion and expertise over the years, especially in leadership, why is that so dangerous?
Yeah, that is dangerous. That is dangerous because, and by the way, the next stuff I'm about to say here is going to be from personal experience.
Okay.
Right, wrong, or indifferent, I would say you have to understand your resources and you do not stretch them. I
Okay.
always tell people you have to stretch yourself. You have to perform in areas that are not your comfort zone. That's why you stretch yourself. That
Mhm.
is the positive side. The negative side of that, you have to know your limit, because if you do not know your limit, if you stretch too much, you're going to pop. And once you
Mm-hmm.
pop, nobody knows what's going to come out, right? Because you may discover you have different personalities, you may discover you had personalities you did not even know, and so on and so forth. So uh having 100% of utilization, that's why I was saying 80% earlier, that is dangerous. And let's talk about utilization. What does that mean, utilization? Utilization, I will probably say, and how many projects should one person realistically support? I have gone through that. At one point, I was going on vacation and I had 7 projects that I was managing. And I know I had 7 projects because they needed 7 people to replace me for me to go on vacation. And that's when I know I was really burning it up. So the good news is it increases my resilience, my capacity to handle stress. That's the good news. The bad news is, it really have some heavy impact on your body. So here's what I will say. There should be a realistic target of 3 active projects per person. As a matter of fact, I believe PMI, don't quote me on that. I believe PMI stated every time you add a project to a PM, their effectiveness reduces by 25%. So if
Mhm.
somebody has 4 real projects they're managing, that means their effectiveness is 0. Now, having said that, if you're managing 4 projects within the same program, meaning they are interconnected, they are interdependencies, you may go even greater than that. I had a program that have 12 projects. So, and those areas, it is feasible. However, you really cannot give people more than 3 projects to three different areas of expertise, because they're not going to do well. One project, you should manage 1 project for deep, high complexity work, urgent delivery, roles that require sustained focus. It should be only one. You should go with 2 projects for most knowledge workers who need meaningful progress without constantly switching. That's where they belong, part of a program. You can go to 3 projects only when the work is light, well structured, and the person has strong administrative support. Because keep in mind, depending on the different phases of the project, I could manage 5 projects at the initiation phase,
Mhm.
at the planning. But when it comes to execution, that requires my undivided attention, I cannot. And I would say 4 projects usually signals a coordination problem. You are now killing people. You may think you are celebrating 100% of utilization. What you may end up having is what I call watermelon projects, meaning they're all green on the outside,
Mhm.
but very red in the inside.
The inside. That is such a profound statement. I've never heard it like that before. But Mr. Joe, what are some of your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think I'm hearing the watermelon projects for the first time. That's an interesting one. Green on the outside and red on the inside. Yeah, I think Dr. Jimmy has encapsulated most of my thoughts around it. I think one, it depends on the size of the different projects being assigned, and yes, the phases of the project. But yes, realistically, I think utilization should never be 100% because of flexibility, because of changes, because of agility of the business. If someone is already clocking 100% utilization, when the changes occur, when the issues come up, when there's need for some moving around, then you're looking at overworking that particular resource. So that's why I wouldn't definitely advise 100%. Even looking at it, so I have a background in engineering. Even looking at it from an engineering perspective, there's something we call a factor of safety, right? Even if a resource can achieve 100%, you do not give it 100% because of that safety factor, right? So I would say definitely 100% should not be it. And I mean, we are working with people, human beings. They have stress can come in, can have burnout. People have their own family situation and dynamics.
Mhm.
So we cannot treat humans as machines. We cannot treat them as tools or yeah. So treating humans as humans means we need to always give that accommodation, that factor of safety. You cannot give them plan them at 100% utilization.
Yeah, and I think if we take a look at emerging trends, this is where some people may become a little bit on the fence about AI as we look toward the future and how AI transformation and planning and resource management and the involvement of AI and its capabilities in these emerging trends will have people at the edge of their seat because, as you said, we're dealing with humans, right? So if we look at how we can strategically incorporate some of those AI functions into the existing work that's being done, how will AI transform the planning and resource management game? Like how will these emerging trends, Joel, if we take a look at that, Mr. Joel, how will that help us to dramatically improve the forecasting and accuracy within a high performing PMO?
Yeah, I think there was a saying someone mentioned that project managers or project leaders who use AI would be much more efficient and effective than those who don't. And what
Mhm.
is the reason why? The reason is AI helps us to achieve much more faster. Helps us with routine tasks. So planning, for example, is a task that can be easily allocated or assigned to AI to do with the introduction of AI in businesses, either using Claude or ChatGPT, or
Mhm.
even certain resource planning tools, because I've made use of one. I wouldn't mention name, but basically that tool, you plan all your projects, you plan all your resources, and it does some form of automatic allocation based on certain criteria that you have defined for the project, as well
Mhm.
as certain skill sets or tags that you have placed on each person or each resource, right? So AI definitely will make it a lot easier and faster. But then, as we know, with computers, with artificial intelligence, garbage in, garbage out, we as humans still need to set that guardrails, need to set the limits and set the decision mechanism for AI or for the tool. I hope that helps answers that question.
That does help. And I would just refer to that as the human in the loop, function within AI. So, Dr. Jimmy, I know that this is directly up your lane when we talk about AI and the emerging trends of AI and how we can implement AI. And bam, there's AI. So, do we need a little sound effect on yours too for the
Yes,
AI?
I will say this much. Reach out to me.
Yeah, there you
Reach
go.
out to me if you need some AI recommendation. I have one tool I can even mention right here, PM Aspire, that very familiar with that does this. But I will say this much: if today, any PMO, if today you do not have artificial intelligence, in your environment, you can, you know what, pause this. You don't need to listen to me, right? And by the way, you're way behind. You're way behind. Reach out and I can help you. PMO functions most likely, let me rephrase that. PMO functions already been automated. Any tasks that are repetitive, rules based, data heavy, that includes status reporting, data collections, dashboarding, schedule updates, risk flagging, and routine support requests. Those should be automated. I will tell you this much: 10 years ago, yeah, but 10 years ago, let's just say before 2022, I had scripts written already in SharePoints that will pretty much go to all my project meeting minutes, create my my reports, put it on a SharePoint, and send links to all my stakeholders that needed to know what projects, what status, and so on and so forth. Update my risk and issues for me every Friday at 3 p.m. Every Friday at 3 p.m., all my scripts are fired up and those things are get out. And I was not using the sophisticated AI tools that we have. We all know some companies, I mentioned it before, they are heavy, they have ecosystem. You bring an AI, let me redefine AI. If you bring generative AI into your environment, you're already behind. This is the time you bring agentic AI because the tool has been vetted, that thing works. You don't need to do proof of concept. There's nothing you're going to prove. This thing works. Let me tell you, starting next month, I'm going to give you this month for you to plan. Starting next month, all high performing PMOs should already have agentic AI to help with reporting and dashboards, with data collection and monitoring, risk and issue triage, resource planning support, meeting notes, and action tracking. I don't have no idea. I have no idea why today somebody is in the meeting taking notes. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Seriously, you don't have anything better to do with your time than to be
Exactly.
busy with a pen and paper taking notes? I mean, I feel so sorry, and my heart goes out for organizations who are not leveraging the tools today to do that and knowledge support. And you were talking about having human in the loop, Dr. Susie. I'm beyond that already. The
Mm-hmm.
human in the loop right now is not even relevant because the tool is in your ecosystem. The
Mm-hmm.
tool knows what the human in the loop will be. What is it that you said you should not have said? What is it? That's a human in the loop. The human in the loop is to track your own mistakes, not the
Mm.
tool. I kid you not. So the things are less likely to be automated. I mentioned it already. That's why I do not believe, I am so adamant against the word project managers. Seriously. All project managers should be automated, should be eliminated. I said it. Project leadership, that's what we need.
All
Works
right.
that depends on judgment, negotiation, organizational politics, trade-off decisions, those should be project leaders. So any high-performing PMOs who are listening to me now, next month, change the title of all your project managers to project leaders
There you
and
go.
let all the agents be your project managers.
There it is. I
That's
knew
my
you would come
story,
down
and
that
I'm
lane
sticking
really
to it.
good. So I want to capitalize really quickly because some high performing PMOs, even though they have the endeared term of project managers and project management, let's talk about some of the tools because we did mention one of our business partner from PMO Global Institute and PM Aspire. And I believe it's the Cosmic tool that they're using for the AI dashboards and other data and design elements that they have within that tool. Can you educate us a little bit on that tool for Cosmic?
Yes, it is the tool that I've had the chance to utilize, and I believe due to the time constraint, Dr. Susie, I would
Mm-hmm.
say people can reach out to you or to or myself so that we can provide them with in-depth knowledge of that tool, and they can even do a trial run for 90 days. That pretty much this tool, you connect it into your environment, it consumes your data, and then it pretty much does the thing that I just mentioned earlier. So
Yeah.
minor administrations, it will help you shift from minor administration to what I call decision support and governance. So It is. I mean, is it perfect? For me, I like to, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Nothing is perfect, of course. However, the only time a tool will be perfect, that's when you'll grow with the tool. So that will be my recommendation.
Very agreed upon. And I do also want to call out that if you're watching via LinkedIn, that you can go to PMO Global Institute's page, their business page on LinkedIn, and connect with them there, and also connect with myself, Dr. Susie Joseph, as well as Dr. Jimmy Goddard and Mr. Joe McKenday, so that we can also talk to you offline about more of the AI and strategic inputs to your organization if interested. But for sure, there is a trial that you can absolutely try out from the business partner PMOGI for their tool, Cosmic, which is fully developed, and it is high and heavy on the AI.
Yes.
All right, so Dr. Jimmy and Mr. Joe, as we're looking at the emerging trends we're talking about here, especially with AI, and how organizations will move from reactive planning to predictive planning. And we talked about the functions that are most likely to become automated within some of those tools. What should PMO professionals do today to prepare? In your opinion, Mr. Joe, what should PMO professionals do today to prepare for
I
emerging
think,
forward? Yeah.
yeah, I think Dr. Jimmy has really spoken around AI and where it should be used around data heaviness, routine tasks, and status reporting, and all of that. Basically, just like with new things, you need to understand the tool, right? I've always used a saying that a tool is only as good as its user. I think I picked it up in one of the movies I watched, right? Where maybe one of these movies where they make use of either swords or guns. So a tool is only as good as the user, right? So that speaks to first understand the tool. Secondly, as a person, you want to understand the business acumen. You want to understand strategy, have a strategic thinking mind. You want to be able to see things from the business's view, leader's view. And I think that's why Dr. Jimmy is really speaking to project leadership rather than project management. You need to be a leader. You need to be able to lead people. You need to be able to make decisions. You need to be able to see things properly from a good vantage point, basically. And we cannot underestimate data analytics. We are at a time. We are at a time. No, that's not the word. We are at a period in time. Yes. We are at a period in time where there's so much data. There's so much data. And if you are unable to read data, you're unable to understand data, you're unable to manipulate data, you're unable to interpret data, you're unable to visualize data, man, the person really has already has an handicap, basically, right? So you need to be able to work with data. You need to learn data analytics, basically. So if you have to summarize, basically, one, understand the tools, AI, automation, power apps, and all of that. Learn data analytics, understand what it means to think strategically, and also build some business acumen. I think that's what I'll speak to around what the professionals, PMO professionals, should focus on today.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, I think that brings us to our time. So,
Well, Dr. Susie, one thing I would say, all competent project managers listening to us right now, the one thing you should do today to prepare is change your title from project managers to project leaders. I'm out.
Do you think we should also change from project management office to project leadership office?
Yes. Now the only difference is the PMO should be able to handle the management concept. That's why I'm not going that far, right?
Okay.
Because the PMO is not only about leading the organization to the project. The management component is still there. However,
Definitely.
project managers should really, as you just mentioned, Joel, to really move from administration heavy work to more strategic, data-driven, and automation-aware leadership. So change your title.
I am going to have to go now and change my trademark midstream right? And tell them not to call, don't call it the VPMO, call it the VPLO because of what Dr. Jimmy just sat here and said. And now you probably have gotten like so many people that are type A personalities walk into the office. What is that? So the holiday, okay, after the holiday, now we're going back. So Monday, I don't know what date that's going to be, the 11th, 12th, 13th. On the 13th of July, we're going to see a wave and a shift of things happening where people are now talking about, I'm not a project manager anymore. I am a project's leader.
Exactly.
A lot
I
of people,
think we need a
right?
sound there.
It's done. We are done for. So, for legal purposes, I just want to say this was his idea. I'm just playing.
Right.
Yeah, you can bring them to me. Bring them to me. I have receipts. I have receipts.
Well, you do, and that's a very good point. But I fully, I know we're joking, but 100%, I do agree with you because it is more about the leadership versus the management and being in those conversations to help to drive those decisions, especially if we're going to be considered a moniker for change management. That's so important that you're able to lead organizations in those changes and deliver what is necessarily needed for the strategic alignment, objectives, and goals of an organization. So, in closing, Dr. Jimmy, what do you want to leave our audience with today?
Wow. You want more?
I mean, you might as well just go for the gusto. You already got us having new titles
Oh,
out here in these
oh my
HR.
goodness.
So
Now
what else?
I would say it is what I would really hopefully people get out of this, all joking aside, is we have reached a point. I would highly every practitioner listening to us. This is not a joke. At the end of the day, as a resource in an organization, whether you're running a PMO, whether you're part of the PMO, you need to focus on one thing. That one thing is value delivery. That is the end state, value delivery. Whatever you do, if you cannot get value out of it, why are you doing it? That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, it changed the mindset. Change the mindset of you being stuck and doing all those paperwork and drive leadership. You can have resources in your project deliver things to you so that you don't have to get down in the myriad of things that you're doing from a management perspective. You still have to manage the project. I'm not saying you do that. You still have to manage your schedule, manage your costs, and also manage your risk, manage your issues. I'm not saying to go away from that. However, your mindset should not be I'm doing 80% of paperwork and I'm doing 20% of leading. It should be you doing most of your work, 80% should be in leading, 90% in communication, right? And the rest that's left over, you do the management of it because we have tools today that can help you with that. So,
Totally agree.
value delivery and then mindset change.
Totally agree. And now over to you, Mr. McKinday. What are your closing remarks and what would you like to leave the audience with today?
Basically, I think the conversation has really been very great around demand, around capacity allocation, resource allocation, and then utilization. Basically, I think as project leaders, we need to step more into strategic human roles. There are roles that are routine, roles that are data driven. We need to push them now to the technologies and the tools that are available to help us with those. So I think it's just as humans, as project leaders, we should focus more on the human side of the business of projects. Yeah, I think that would be it for me. As project leaders, focus more on the human side of projects.
Awesome. All right. Well, I just want to properly thank you, Mr. Joe McKinday, for joining us today on such a very important and hot topic about capacity and demand planning for project management and high performing PMOs. And we just thank you for coming out and sharing your time with us. And for those of you that are interested in connecting or following Mr. McKinday on LinkedIn, his information is below at Mr. Joe McKinday on LinkedIn, and you can find him through this link here at linkedin.com/in/Joel McKinday. So be sure to connect with him, increase his follows on LinkedIn, and we appreciate you for coming out. Dr. Jimmy, any other words you want to share with Joe before we let him go from the set?
No, thank you, Joe. It was a pleasure to have you with us, and looking forward to more of those wonderful hot topic discussions.
Definitely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Susie. Thank you very much, Dr. Jimmy, for having me. I think it has really been an interesting conversation. Very interesting. I believe our viewers definitely have a lot to take home with them. Thank you.
Absolutely. We enjoy having you, and thank you again, Joe. Bye-bye. Well, Dr. Jimmy, what an interesting set today. So I think that today's discussion reminds us that project success is not simply about doing more. It's about doing the right work with the right people at the right time. And I know we say that like all the time, right? So it's in a sustainable manner that we actually do this. And I think, as you mentioned before, as leaders, we must recognize that in the world of project management, that demand without prioritization creates chaos, and capacity determines sustainable delivery as well. And resource allocation is very strategic if done correctly. So if we maximize the utilization, we have to understand that maximum utilization does not equal maximum performance either, because we have to manage that appropriately as well. So great PMOs should help organizations make better investment decisions, as you so eloquently said during the session today. It's more about the investments that we're making within the organizations, which also connects to the points that you brought up about not just being a project manager, but being the leader, understanding and having that stronger business acumen to understand what those investments, the investment decisions could help to shape for the organizations. And then through the work that we all do in our industry, helping to drive those deliverables so we meet those strategic goals and objectives. So to our audience around the world, we would like to thank you for spending time with us. And we also, I know that it's already passed, but we want to wish you a very happy Independence Day and happy birthday to America for 250 years. So if you have found in today's discussion any value, we would like for you to please share this with your colleagues, your project managers, PMO leaders, executives, and organizational decision makers. And if you would like more information on organizational leadership, CBPMO training, or any of the AI tools or AI discussions or conversations, you can reach out to my co-host here, Dr. Jimmy Goddard, on LinkedIn. You can also reach out to him on YouTube if you want to drop a note there from one of his many videos and other items that he has posted out there, such as reels and other types of content, or send him an email at drjimmygoddard@globalcompasshub.com. Dr. Jimmy, any other remarks that you would like to make about the organizational leadership speaking engagements? Any coming up here?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we just completed the great workshop certification on CBPMO, and we have some additional work that we have planning going for the month of October. So I would say everybody just please reach out. You have the contacts below. And just to end, I will echo what Dr. Susie mentioned when it comes to organization leadership. Yes, a lot of things are happening. A lot of work is happening. However, if you do the right thing the first time, you will find out you will do less and achieve more versus do more with less.
So very true. So again, if you want to reach out, you can capture Dr. Jimmy's information as it is scrolling across the screen, and I will let it scroll just one more time so I can make sure that you all got it. From LinkedIn, we're looking at Jimmy Goddard, YouTube at GC Hub Academy, and email jimmygoddard@globalcompasshub.com. As always, it is a pleasure to have my co-host here with me. So on behalf of Project Management Learning Center and Global Compass Hub, Dr. Jimmy, and our special guest, Joel, We want to thank you again for joining us. And I'll leave you with this thought for today. Organizations rarely fail because they lack ambition. They fail because they underestimate the finite nature of their capacity. The best PMOs don't simply deliver projects, they create the discipline to choose wisely, allocate intelligently, and execute sustainably. So before I say goodnight, I would like to once again announce that PMLC Consulting Group has officially launched. And let me go get my little assets here. Boom, there, I missed it by a second. But we have officially launched our VPMO, which we're changing that to VPLO. Thank you very much. I have to contact the trademark office. I am so serious about this. So we can change that because we want to introduce leaders and have you to connect with leaders within the industry. So with all seriousness aside, we are very excited to have launched our VPMO for virtual project management here at PMLC Consulting Group. And we would like to invite you to partner with us for any upcoming projects that you may have within your organization, where you could use our services for an extension of your project management efforts and work that are needed to carry out your strategic goals and objectives for your organization. So before we say goodnight, I would like for you all to stay inspired and to continue leading with excellence. And as we sign off, again, I am Dr. Susie Joseph, CEO and founder of PMLC and PMLC Consulting Group. Good night, everyone.